Hi, everybody. My name is Lorelai Arianis, and my project was on the social construction of intimacy. I thought that this would be a really interesting project for me to pursue and just kind of look into a little bit more. So my slides are going to kind of be focusing on intimacy and how we often think of it as a deeply personal and like something private, and instinctive. But what if intimacy isn't something that we're born knowing, but something that we learn? So this presentation will basically just describe how it is a social construct influenced by culture, things that we are experiencing through our social lives, and historical factors. I really tried my best to uncover diverse meanings of intimacy and reflect on challenges posed by the absence of clear models. Let's continue going forward. Um, so intimacy as a social construct in families. This is really interesting because we can look at how intimacy forms within families and how it changes over time. We can also see how media and culture tells us what it should look like. Um, so Sorry, there's a cat. But essentially, family dynamics are going to influence what we think intimacy should look like, whether it's affectionate, formal, distant, or emotionally oppressive. Societal norms like traditional gender roles or expectations of marriage or relationships in general are really going to give us that example of what to go with as well. Um, a great example of this is a child raised in a household where physical affections may interact emotional closeness very differently may interact with emotional closeness very differently than someone who grew up with frequent hugging and open conversations. So they're gonna people who didn't grow up with that being normal are probably gonna feel a little uncomfortable when it comes to intimate situations versus someone who was around them a lot more growing up. A great question here is, how did your family show affection? If they did or if they did not? And can you see how that actually impacted your future relationships? Moving on. I know this is a little hard to read. Unfortunately, my graph didn't transfer over very well. Um, but I wanted to talk about the changes in relationship dynamics over time with intimacy. So you kind of see here just it's going to start from, just shifting trends. So, diverse relationships forming, defining different roles, and rising cohabitation. So, this is basically it's different now compared to a couple of years back. We have more people living with each other. Marriage rates are steady, but it is a little bit more difficult for us as we are getting married older due to women continuing to further their educations. And there's just various factors. Intimacy is different than what it used to be considered as. Um, Give me just a moment. So let's talk a little bit more about relationships and how they've been able to evolve. Um, a lot of times people now, a great example is, we're getting married later, divorcing more often, and redefining what a relationship even is. Especially with technology now, things are changing. There's dating apps, we have Tinder, we have so many other options now. But this is going to redefine things. There's change in gender roles, more cultural openness, all play a very crucial part. Relationships now can be more egalitarian. They can be equaler. There's going to be more queer relationships that are visible. Dating apps have changed how people can meet. We're not meeting in bookstores anymore or at school. We can meet through an app. Um, we can go on dates on an app. It's amazing what we can do now. Um, and We have just basically gotten to the point where we need to ask deeper emotional questions in order to really see this intimacy take place. Let's see. Sorry, just glancing over at my notes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about evolving cultural narratives about relationships. So today, narratives often emphasize personal fulfillment, emotional openness, and sexual exploration. These models may empower people to define intimacy on their own terms, but can also create unrealistic expectations. So we can kind of compare this to past narratives that prioritize duty, stability, or reproduction. There isn't as much as a focus on that now, just kind of as we continue to develop as a society. We more so have a media that kind of created a pressure to be sexy but emotionally perfect and have it all. And unfortunately, that just is not realistic anymore. Intimacy is about being personable, it's about being real, it's about being ugly and accepting your partner for who they are. Or their friends, because intimacy is not just romantic, it is something that we use every single day. And a lot of times, empathy and intimacy go hand in hand. um, so, but yes, regarding cultural narratives, though, it's different now because with more cultural openness and also the mixing of cultures, we find ourselves constantly having to change the way that we are intimate because there is no norm for this. We are changing every day, and things are going to be different in certain cultures, and there's a blending of it all. Personal reflections. So this is just kind of more so about me. So I personally didn't grow up with a clear model of intimacy, and affection wasn't something that was openly expressed in my household. There weren't really emotional conversations. Um, and most of it was factual. I didn't grow up in a household where we openly talked about our feelings. Everything was kind of danced around. So that's a little context. But as an adult, I've had to piece together what intimacy means for me, also through trial and error. This is something that has really affected me and my husband, but this has made relationships both confusing and enlightening. I felt inadequate at times because I didn't understand what intimacy meant or how to really be intimate as a person. But I've also developed a deep empathy for others navigating intimacy in their own way. To me, intimacy is just being able to be open no matter how scary things are, and being able to properly communicate. I think that's a really big part of it. Um, but empathy also plays a part because with being intimate, there is a real sense of being naked, whether that's showing your emotions, whether that's actually getting intimate with somebody. But with that being said, empathy is something that you need to hold in your heart to make sure that anybody who you are being intimate with feels seen, feels heard, and feels respected. Kind of going a little bit more into this, I was able to gather some examples from research. A great one was Gronville. Intimacy exists in commercial relationships like between long term caregivers and clients. These ties may involve trust, emotion, routine, and challenging the idea that intimacy is only private or romantic. This kind of words what I was trying to say better. But another great example is Atwood. Media consumption, especially pornography, influences sexual expectations, often clashing with real life experiences and contributing to misunderstanding between partners. This is just really explaining how intimacy may not just be something that is so perfect. Sometimes it can lead to misunderstanding if not properly understood. Another great example of this is Lishan Adams. In low income South American families or communities, intimacy is shaped by socioeconomic challenges, and practical survival often comes before emotional openness, yet, strong bonds still exist in alternative forms. Intimacy can take place in places that you don't expect it to. We can still have strong bonds with our family, and that would be considered intimate as well, because it's not just sexual. It's emotional. Being intimate is emotional. Kind of some key points here, just to kind of summarize everything that we've talked about. But intimacy is socially constructed through families, cultural shifts, and media. Um, Going back and just being brief on this, socially constructed through families is the way that we've grown up, things that we have considered to be normal because of the way that we are brought up. Cultural shifts are things that we see within our own cultures. Me being Hispanic, intimacy is a thing that's specifically romantic. But as I've gotten older, I've read that, or I've understand now that you can be intimate with your friends as well, being true to yourself, and through media. Social media is always going to skew our perspectives of things. And because of that, it has also changed the meaning of intimacy over and over and over again. Um, Another key point is relationship dynamics are evolving due to societal and technological changes. This is the dating apps that we're seeing, it's the texting people on Instagram or Snapchat, it's just every single way that we can communicate now, which is different than just how we used to in the past. Understanding intimacy requires empathy for diverse life experiences. So, me being able to understand your upbringing and you being able to understand mine is really going to help with intimacy and just being open to the idea that we all are different and our minds work in different ways. Um, so, final thoughts, these were kind of just for me, but recognizing intimacy as a social construct empowers us. It allows us to question inherited ideas and build relationships that affect who we are, not just who we were told to be. And I want that to stick with you, even if nothing else in this presentation does. But it is important to remember to be who you want and not who you are told. These were my references and my questions for everybody. These are just kind of something to think about, but how has your upbringing shaped your view of intimacy, and how has societal changes influenced your relationship? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day and happy end of semester.